starting at the knowledge of destiny, which is on page 3.
It is 3.
Okay, so what prevents such people, which he says is what was referred to before as the pure servants. What prevents such people from asking is only that they know that God has, what prevents such people from asking is only that they know that God has eternally decreed for them. Thus they have made ready their place to receive whatever he wishes, and they have stayed away from their own selves and their personal inclinations. Amongst these there is one who knows that God's knowledge of him in all his states is how he was in the state of establishment of his essential reality, prior to his physical existence. He knows that God gives him nothing except that knowledge of him which his own essence bestows, and that is how he was in the state of his establishment, and so he knows from where God's knowledge of him comes. There is no category of the people of God that is more elevated and knowing through unveiling than this. For these people comprehend the mystery of destiny. Sir al-Qadar. They are of two kinds. Those who know this mystery in a general way, and those who know it in detail. And the one who knows it in detail is more elevated and complete than the one who only knows generally. For he knows what is in God's knowledge concerning him, either by God himself informing him what knowledge of him is bestowed by his essence, or by there being revealed to him his own established essential reality, al-Ain al-Thabita, and the endless succession of states that flow over it. And this is higher, for in his knowledge of himself he is in the same place as God's knowledge of him, since the taking of knowledge is from a single source. However, from the side of the servant, it is a special providential favor from God which is predestined to him, arising from the sum of the states of his essence, which the possessor of this unveiling recognizes when God discloses it to him. Whatever the states of his essence may be. For it is not within the power of a creature, when God discloses the states of his established essence, according to which the form of existence occurs, that in this state he should have revealed to him the disclosing of the real to these established essences in the state of their non-existence. For they are essential relations without form. According to this, we may say that it is a divine providential blessing which is destined to this servant through that parity in the imparting of knowledge. Thus God the Exalted says, "We shall try you until we know," which is an expression precisely establishing the true spiritual meaning, unlike what is supposed by those who are not of this way. The furthest that the transcendentalist can reach is to say that this apparent temporality in divine knowledge is due to dependence of God upon the creature. This is the most that the theologian can maintain through his intellect on this question. If only he had not affirmed knowledge as additional to the essence and ascribed dependence for it, not for the essence. By that he distinguishes himself from the true verifier among the people of God, one who possesses real insight and experience. So that's a pretty tricky passage, so
Whoa.
we should probably pause there and contemplate and discuss.
May I ask, Tony, in that very first line, it sort of links me back to those who would not ask for anything specific, but would receive whatever they receive, they would be aware of their capacity through the gift. Would those be those same people? Because these are the pure ones, right? The pure servants. What prevents the pure servants from asking is only that they know that God has already decreed for them. You know, it's they don't ask for anything specific. They are, in a sense, conformed to what God has already determined for them.
Yeah, let's read this note. It's a good note. So the Arabic word used here, qadar, refers to the eternal decree of God, operating from all eternity upon what has existence. When he has decreed qadar something, he says, be, and it becomes. It is traditionally contrasted with the term qadar, destiny or fate, in the sense of that which is determined or fixed in time. It has the meaning of measure, evaluation, or fixed limit. For example, God distributes widely and apportions his gifts to whomsoever he pleases. It has the general sense of determine, establish, decree, as in he who established the fate of men, qadara, and guided them on the straight path. In Islamic theology, qadar was understood as an eternal decree and qadar as an apportioning that occurs in time, and there was intense discussion of the role of free will and action in relation to the divine decree from the time of the Prophet onwards. Here Ibn Arabi resolves the problem within the framework of self-knowledge and divine unveiling. So I mean, he's is that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that cleared it. Thank you.
It means that, you know, they don't just know in an intellectual way that God has decreed for them, and therefore they're going to just be ready to receive whatever he gives them. I mean, they actually know. They know, if not in detail, they know. They're at the state of knowledge of knowing that God has decreed eternally for them as He has for everyone.
He doesn't use this term, but it sounds like it would be commensurate with what's called ilm al-yaqeen. Yaqeen is certainty, you know, that you know. Ilm, knowledge, certitude.
Yeah, I don't know if you remember the kernel of the kernel.
Exactly.
There's three types of ilm.
This section where just below what she was speaking about, amongst these there is one who knows that God's knowledge of him in all his states is how he was in the state of establishment of his essential reality prior to his physical existence. So in there's a little conundrum for me. I guess for me, I'm assuming that state of establishment is kind of prior to birth, when you were in that state of the one reality merged with all that. In reading that, I think the whole goal is to return in that remembrance and going toward the one and going back to that. And I don't have a whole lot of knowledge myself of reincarnation, but that the whole thing of having a life and then not quite reaching the goal and then coming back again and going through it again. But this kind of lends it to be that state that you're in before your physical existence comes into place, that you have all of that, you've already reached that, or it's all there, essentially. All the essential knowledge, all the reality is there and given to you, that you have knowledge of that in that state before physical existence. Is that, am I kind of interpreting that correct?
Not quite sure what the question is. That,
I don't know. Maybe I didn't pose a question yet. I guess my question would be, is that state, knowing that God's knowledge of him in all states is how he was in the state of establishment of his essential reality prior to his physical existence. So is that beginning, so to speak, the same as the end goal? Like, is it all kind of
okay, well,
like the one, we're trying to merge with the one and realize that we're all one and know that one reality, and reaching the highest point of that is kind of, seems like the goal of our path is, to move towards that, towards the one.
Well, the goal is to get to the point where you realize you are where you always were and never left.
I got left.
You know, that this is a state out of time.
Pretty
So,
sort of about it in the beginning.
Yeah, I was seeing this as before the beginning, but
It's called,
yeah.
it is outside
So
of
it-
time.
that was a perfect
Yeah, I
explanation
mean,
to
you
kinda
have to
help
be
me.
very careful when you use these temporal terms like before and after, because
Yeah.
it's
Life.
he will use those terms to describe a logical priority or interiority, but I think the point he's trying to make is that the state of your establishment, which is, I mean, everything that exists are eternally existing possibilities within the divine essence and within the divine knowledge. I mean, he talks about them in two modes. There are, they're things that are modes of the essence and modes of the intellect, in the sense of being things that are known. And they are never ever anything other than these pure possibilities of existence that never leave that state. And what appears is the imaging of all of those possibilities through time. And so the coming together of this state of eternal non-existence and the state of temporal existence is in a sense this mystery that he's talking about, where things unfold according to God's knowledge of what they are, because it's all about knowledge. It's not about a divine being creating something and it's about God's knowledge of himself through, in particular modes of himself, and these things are established for all time, and so that to recognize or come to know yourself as you were at the time of your establishment is to know yourself as God knows you, and and to see that at the same time as you're still in a body and things are happening in time, have this sense of being something that's destined for you, because things happen according to what God knows of you, from all eternity. I can't really say it
No,
any
very
clearer
well
than
said.
that, but and just something I'd just like to pick up on what you said about the reincarnation thing. The Sufi perspective is that there is no reincarnation because there is no incarnation.
There's no incarnation.
Because and that's, I mean, that's not just a play on words, but I mean that's an important point about this particular perspective, which is that there's nothing but the appearance of God in the forms of the possibilities of existence, and nothing appears but God himself, and only God knows himself. So the thing of reincarnation is another perspective. It's not to it has a validity from a different perspective, but perspective that we're looking at it from here is to be quite clear that there is no, things are not incarnating and reincarnating because there's nothing other than the one that is appearing in all forms. The forms fall away and the one persists.
Mm-hmm.
But he does talk about the endless succession of states.
This line in that same paragraph that you read, Sikander.
Mm-hmm.
The person knows that God gives her nothing except that knowledge of Allah, which her own essence bestows, and that is how she was in the state of her establishment, and so she knows from where God's knowledge of her comes. Sometimes I have to do that, not for any kind of political stuff, but just so that I can separate it. There's too many hymns and his and him, and that way it's clearer for me if I just change the gender. Oh, okay, her, she, the person that created, right? But what that makes me think of is that that line that whoso knoweth themselves knoweth their Lord.
Mm.
But here we slide right back into that same point of view that we are knowing anything, because it says whoso knoweth themselves, right? As if I'm the knower, but there's only one knower, and that the knowledge transpires through the form, and so that it appears as if I'm somehow knowing something. But whatever quotes I know, it's because that capacity or that I guess capacity is all I can think of, but the vessel can hold that, and then I wonder, well, all right, that's like preordained. We could even say it's preordained. Then how is it that so many of us wander around here dumb and blind? Like we don't know who we are, where we came from, where we're going. We don't know, and yet the capacity or it was given, right? And I don't know if this is correct, but for me it hooks up with quotes. Many are called, but few are chosen. That's just how it's said. However, in my head, I've always heard it as everyone is called and few choose and few make the choice, because free will is involved. It isn't, well, you're going to be a this and you're going to be that. Then you go, well, then why try anything at all if it's all predestined? Am I wandering too far?
No, these are all the big questions that come up with this. As soon as you start talking about destiny and
well, and then especially on your point, there is not this concept of reincarnation, because if you want to call it a concept, then the concept that we're espousing is that we never were incarnated, right? So you see how it forces one, I think, to continually, as Pure Murshid in his own words, he says, shatter your ideal, right? As far as finely tuned as we've gotten it, and as clear as the philosophical piece, the theological piece, as tightly as we got that thing together, now it's perfect. He says, shatter your ideal on the rock of truth. It took you all this time and all this effort, and now just crash, because that's not it. That's not it. So keep, oh.
And that reminded me what you just said somewhere in here. I remember that was said that we never quite attain existence. We're always
The contingent.
we never really attain existence.
There's only one existent. Do you want to? You do this so well. Speaking of the knowledge and the knowing and the knower,
have something in mind?
Oh, just how nicely you always put that together. He always does.
Well, we'll see. We'll wait for the
Inshallah.
inspiration to come.
On the way over here, I was thinking about humanity in a certain allegorical sense. There's like, for people who have raised a child, you have the experience that when the child is a teenager, they are very skeptical about your level of understanding of anything. And then later in life, they come to realize, oh, that you probably had some wisdom and that they've grown to appreciate. But what prompted me to think about that was that, and why I'm thinking about it now is that in terms of where is humanity in its evolution, in thinking that there were ancient peoples who did have a level of wisdom, and then we have the scientific age that I'm thinking of as like similar to the teenager that's not respecting the ancient wisdom and going off thinking they know it all now, and that we're actually coming to this point in our evolution where we're starting to realize, oh, that ancient wisdom, there was something to that after all. And then hopefully what Purple I would say, a beautiful world full of beautiful people that will get closer to that experience of our non-incarnation.
Okay, this ties it up more, Tony, on that continuing page, and this is higher up. For his knowledge, her knowledge of herself, for in her knowledge of herself, she is in the same place as God's knowledge of her, since the taking of knowledge is from a single source. There couldn't be any other way to have knowledge. So,
one of the interesting things that gets brought up in the context of this mystery of destiny, which he talks about in the kernel of the kernel, says it's one of the big keys, is the fact that knowledge is subject to the known, and which seems to relate to this last paragraph where he's talking about the limits of what the theologians get to. And because there's this this reciprocity between the knower and the known that I guess gives the appearance that God is somehow dependent on the creature, or that his knowledge is dependent on the creature, which is a difficult concept in terms of Islamic theology, because
Yeah.
you have to be able to say that God is not in any way dependent on anything.
On anything.
And so to kind of hold those two things at the same time, that there is a dependency and no dependency, is kind of what this mystery is about. I mean, that it really is about knowledge and true knowledge and not intellectual knowledge, because intellectual knowledge can't get to that point of seeing the interdependence of these two aspects of the one. Because it's one, that obviously it's no dependency at all, because who could he be dependent on?
No, exactly.
And yet there is, I mean, the whole purpose of it is to know what the hidden treasure is, and therefore that knowledge is completely dependent on what the treasure happens to be.
And so the limited, the limited contingent is requisite. The mirror is necessary.
From a certain perspective, yes. I mean, none of it is necessary in
Capital, and it's not capitalizing the, it's not.
in essence. I mean, there's no. I mean, it's necessary in the sense that he is necessary. God is necessary, and that he had. Wanted to know.
Well, that's the point. Is like the yearning was so strong that creation came in a response to that.
I mean, once that love to be known in this particular way had been expressed, then it is necessary.
That's what I meant.
Yeah.
Because as you said, there's nothing to be dependent upon, and yet we're also told that no one can have a clear view of themselves, and so the mirror or the reflection is needed in order to provide that view that one cannot provide for oneself or to oneself from that point of view.
Is this all making any sense?
Which goes right to the mirror.
Gives them the
That
essence.
last thought that you said about the mirror reminded me of an old saying I used to say about being in a band. The worst part about being in a band is that you can never sit in the audience and watch yourself play. So like if you really want to see your show from the perspective of watching it, you can never do that. You can watch it on video or watch it back or playback, but you can never have that experience of being in the crowd at your own show. And I've always thought of that because I always try to put myself in that position. What am I giving the audience? What, that kind of thing. But that made me think of that's so true. I mean, even looking at a mirror, you're not even looking. You see the reflection of what's there, but you don't see the actual perception that you would see from this vantage point. That was very.
You can never see your own face.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, and that's exactly what he says when he says I suppose I guess I was thinking this, the one right at the top that you mentioned earlier, but in his knowledge of himself, he's in the same place as God's knowledge of him. I thought there was another thing where it's basically saying you can only know yourself as God knows you. You can't know God.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's the same thing, you look in the mirror, you see the image, the reflection.
Mm-hmm.
Only the real sees the real.
Have we chewed on that enough?
Yeah, let's
We've got about 20, 25 more minutes or so. That gives you time to
Yeah.
summarize.
Okay, so gifts of the essence, self-disclosure in the mirror. Now returning to the subject of divine gifts, let us say that the gifts are either from the essence or from the names. The benefactions, gifts and favours that come from the essence only ever happen through a divine self-revelation, and the self-disclosure from the essence only ever comes about in the form of aptitude of the one revealed to. Nothing else ever occurs. Thus the one revealed to never sees anything in the mirror of the real other than his own form. He does not see the real, nor is it possible that he should see him, all the while knowing that he only sees his own form in him. This is like the example of a physical mirror. When you see the form in it, you don't see it, the mirror, at the same time, despite your knowing that you cannot see the forms or your own form except in it. God makes this clear as a symbol which he provides for his essential revelation, so that the one revealed to may know that he did not see him. There is no symbol or likeness closer to vision and self-revelation than this. Try yourself to see the form in the mirror at the same time as seeing the body of the mirror. You will never see them both together. This is so much the case that some of those who have had this perception in the form of mirrors came to the conclusion that the form which is seen lies in between the eye of the viewer and the mirror. That is the most knowledge that they have been capable of attaining. However, the matter is as we have said. We hold to that, and we have explained this in the Futuhat al-Makkiyah. If you have tasted this, you have experienced the utmost, above which there is nothing more regarding the creature. So do not aspire or wear yourself out in trying to progress beyond this point, for there is nothing there at all, and after it there is nothing but pure non-existence. He is your mirror in which you see yourself, while you are his mirror in which he sees his names and manifests their properties, and they are no other than himself, so the matter becomes confused and ambiguous. The greatest knowledge of God. Amongst us are those who are not knowing in their knowledge, saying, the inability to grasp comprehension is itself comprehension. And amongst us are those who truly know and do not speak like this, and that is the highest speech. Rather, knowledge makes such a person silent and does not bestow inability. This person is the greatest knower of God, and this knowledge does not happen except for the seal of messengers and the seal of the saints. None of the prophets and messengers contemplate this knowledge except from the light niche of the messenger seal, and none of the saints contemplate it except from the light niche of the saint seal. So much so that none of the messengers can contemplate this when they see it except from the light niche of the seal of the saints. For envoyship and prophethood, that is to say, the prophethood and envoyship of lawmaking, both come to an end, whereas sainthood never comes to an end. Thus the messengers, due to their being saints, do not contemplate what we have mentioned except from the light niche of the seal of the saints. And how then is it for those saints who are below them in rank?
Indeed.
Even though the seal of the saints is subject to regulation due to the religious law which the seal of the messengers brings, that does not impair his station nor contradict what we believe about him. For in one respect he may be at a lower level, while in another respect he may be higher. The point of view which we have expounded here is corroborated by events that can be seen in our own religious way, where Umar's view regarding the prisoners at the Battle of Hadr was preferred, and also concerning the pollination of the palm tree. It is not necessary for the perfect one to have precedence in everything and in every degree. The people of knowledge have in view only precedence in levels of knowledge of God. That is where their quest lies. As for happenings that take place in the world, their thoughts are not attached to them. So realize what we have mentioned.
sure what the matter is that we have said.
Well, I think what he's saying is that these people whose knowledge is limited are trying to kind of reconcile this problem of the observer and the observed, and they're trying to maintain some independence of God as the observer, or from the other point of view, as the observed, from the from trying to make it, that God as a independent of the observed, or as the knower from the known. And so they've posited this thing in between that that kind of that the form is somehow a kind of created thing between the viewer and the mirror. Because this insight that the observer and the observed are the same is like a kind of, it's a mystical state. It's not an intellectual state. You can't intellectually say that the observer and the observed are the same, because your vision tells you otherwise. And when it comes to the matter of God as the observer, you're left with the problem of how do you assert his complete independence of all the forms, unless you say that he is the same as all the forms. But to say he's the same as all the forms, it means that you're somehow limiting him.
You get in trouble.
So it becomes a big dilemma for the intellect to deal with.
One of those places the intellect can't go.
Divine consternation. I think this is part of the difficulty in this final paragraph in that same section. The creator, right, the source is your mirror in which you see yourself. So in contemplating the divine reality, the image that is possible for us to receive is an image of the divinity, which is what Hiromosha came to help us wake up to do, right? So the only reflection we can get back, right? He is your mirror in which you see yourself, but we're looking into the essence, right? Whereas on the other side, why you, all of this, are his mirror in which he sees his names and manifests their properties. It's a different. And they are no other than himself. So the matter becomes confused and ambiguous.
That first line kind of tied in nicely with a previous line, because he is your mirror in which you see yourself. But then earlier it says, try to look at the mirror in the frame of the mirror. Try to see your image in the mirror at the same time. You can't see them both. It's
It's like, in a way too, it's like if you're looking at the image, like okay, I say like I'm looking at the image of the mirror and not seeing the mirror. It's the same thing. If I'm looking at the images, I'm not seeing the essence. So, it's just the same.
It's like if you're looking through a window out at a crowd of people moving, you know, you can be first aware that you are looking through the window frame and the curtains and seeing the window, but then you identify, you look out through it, you forget the essence of the window. You're seeing specific people and you become identified with the people moving out there, so it's like you're forgetting the essence, and you're kind of identifying with the, you know, the subjects. Or to me that's kind of what we're talking about with the mirror as well. And I guess if you could carry that simultaneous consciousness, that would be like fourth dimensional seeing or something. I mean, we're limited in terms of, maybe that would be a peak mystical moment to be able to do that. And I think that's what our brains are straining to try to understand it, and we just can't. At least I can't. Does that make any sense?
Totally. But you just made me flash on that term that Pierre Malaya coined. He said we have to have stereoscopic vision.
Wow.
Stereoscopic vision.
Yes. Yeah. Easy for him to say.
Yeah. And he was always referring to that which transpires through that which appears, which is what you're talking about.
Well, when Tony made the comment about, you know, not being able to see through the eyes because of just the optics of how we see, kind of back into that same kind of idea. I lost my train of thought with that.
But what about in these last few minutes that we have, this point about the light niche, the Mishkan al-Anwar of the saint and the messenger. That's pretty far out.
Do you have any thought or question about that?
Not necessarily.
There's a note further on. Skipping ahead, but I think when I read it, it helped me without the niche part, in that this 25, note 25, where it goes into the for he is the close friend, one to whom all praise is due. The Arabic word wali, close friend, is the equivalent of the Western saint.
Yeah.
i.e. the one whom God has made his friend, but it is equally a divine name, God the friend, the one who is close. Here Ibn Arabi is alluding to the divine characterization of the human who knows his non-existence in him and is close to him, so that the divine qualities manifest in him in their fullness. So the wali, I think, is easier for me to relate to than the word saint, just by itself, in terms, or it has more, it conveys more of that sense of the closeness.
Exactly.
And just the word saint.
Yeah, it's a quite different concept from the Catholic
Yeah,
concept.
sanctification of some human for
Yeah.
Miracles.
It's a state of knowledge, and state of curses. I think the Wali is the only divine name that is shared with the humans, the perfect ones. I think it's the only divine name that can be applied equally to God or to
friend and friend. Well, this thing of drawing nigh, proximity, is what the lovers seek. The lovers seek intimacy, the most intimate union possible, to the nth degree, whatever that is. And then from the other side, what comes to mind is just God saying that this lover's longing is so overwhelming that not only do they wash the dishes, sweep the floor, make the bed, buy the groceries, clean the house, not only do they do everything that they're supposed to do that was on their to-do list, but they did even more than that because they wanted to get even closer to me. And it elicits love from me because I see what they're doing, that they want to come closer to me, and this makes me love them more. And so that when I love them through these supererogatory things that they're doing, when I love them, it isn't that I become what I never was, because there's only the one reality, but the awakening happens, perhaps, inshallah, that this hand opens and closes because Allah wills it. But if I say that, and you don't know where I'm coming from when I say Allah wills it, you'll think that I'm some very limited, narrow person that doesn't think any further than, well, it's already happened. It's out of my hands. It's like it isn't that. Well, in our own prayer, this always happens, not always, but often happens to me when we say, draw us closer to thee every moment of our life until in us be reflected thy grace, thy glory, thy wisdom, thy joy, and thy peace, these qualities. And the movement from here, I don't know if this happens to you, but this sort of alteration in my vision happens when something is up like this, like I can see my hand, the form of my hand, and I can still see the rest of the room, but I'm focusing here. More light seems to be coming from this form right here, and I'm seeing as if in a mirror, thy grace, thy glory, thy wisdom. That's what this is.
I think, it's not even that, this happens because God wills it. It's that when you're lost in love, the closest you can get is identification. And, literally, your hand, your foot, your tongue is the hand, foot and tongue of the beloved.
Yeah.
It's not, there isn't any separate thing. This is not my hand, my foot, my tongue. It's you and the beloved are that's as close as you can get. And and that's you lose yourself, you lose your separate identity in the beloved, and so everything about you is now the beloved.
I'll accept that.
Really good place.
I can dig it. I mentioned something to Nur Fatima on the way over that I thought was really interesting. I just wanted to share. Piers Zia was on a webcast today. He's doing a thing at the Abode this weekend, and he gave a really, really deep historical chronology of Sufism and Sufis, and he had said that, I thought this was really interesting and very eye-opening, but he had said that Seth was the first person referred to as a Sufi, and that the term Sufi wasn't used yet at that time, but that when the term Sufi became into existence, he was referred to as the first Sufi. And then he said that Sufism really has been around since the creation of time, since Adam, because prophethood started there, and that's really where everything came from. That was both of those statements were very eye-opening to me, and really were kind of like, wow, this is pretty remarkable stuff we're studying here, and just really made me understand. It just kind of almost shined a light on this a little bit more to think that we're reading Seth for the 8th time, and he's the first Sufi. That's pretty cool.
That's really good. An interesting thing in Stephen Hertenstein's book, he's the one who translated this chapter, on the unlimited versifier, which is all about Ibn Arabi. He talks about Ibn Arabi meeting some saint, and it may have been, or maybe it was a prophet, and it may have been one who was not in his body. I can't remember exactly who it was he met. And he talked to him about how he had just met Adam and been talking, Ibn Arabi had been talking with Adam, and this person who's Ibn Arabi was talking to said, "Oh, which Adam was that?" And he said, "There have been 40,000 Adams." So, it's a slightly different perspective on time.
It's like Rashid says, I may be wrong on this, the number, but 124,000 prophets.
A lot of them. Countless, but known and unknown to the world. Rahim. Qul huwallahu ahad. Allahu as-samad. Lam yalid wa lam yulad. Wa lam yakun lahu kufuwan ahad. Assalamu alaikum rahmatullah wa barakatullah. Assalamu alaikum rahmatullah wa barakatullah. Ameen, ameen, ameen.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you for coming. It's a pleasure to see you again.
Yes, you too.
I hope
Thank you, Tasneem, for
Alhamdulillah.
having us. And
Alhamdulillah, you're welcome.
thank you all for being here.
We're still here.
It's good to be home. Yeah.
Yeah. I just appreciate these moments of remembrance, you know, that we can focus. We
So
can mirror.
I hope to be here in 2 weeks' time, but I am having to have some more tweaks on my eye, and so I'm not quite sure of the timing of it, but I'll let you know.
All right.
And
What
then,
what is the date? 2 weeks from tonight?
The 21st. Today's the
so then I
7th.
think
7th, yes.
7/14/21, so it's
Right.
21 is the next one.
the week after that, I am probably going to go to England for a couple of weeks. My wife's over there. We'll be over there, so she's sort of gone from an extended stay, and also early June is my dad's 95th birthday.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
He's in the UK.
Mm-hmm.
How's he doing?
He's
95?
He's I mean, mentally and everything, he's very clear. He's still doing really well. I mean, he has lots of minor ailments, but he still lives on his own, cooks for himself, does the gardening.
Wow.
Right.
Wow. That's great.
Amazing, yeah.
I mean, it's a little perilous because he's kind of mostly lost feeling in his hands. So, like, he'll drop the shears on his leg and stuff like that. But for the most part, he's doing really well. But he's
So through the beginning of June, you'll be gone?
so I haven't booked it yet because I was just trying to get it sorted out with people at work. But I'm thinking I would leave Thursday, May the 28th, and be back here on the 15th. So that means, so 2 weeks from now is the 21st. Then there would be the 4th, which I would miss. And then the 18th I
And
would
the 4th I go to Denver.
and the 18th I would be here.
So we'll work this out.
You'll be here next week. If Tony's not here, maybe we could just meet without Tony.
Yeah.
Will you still be here?
Which date?
2
Next
weeks?
week? No,
It's
no.
all
First.
gone by
He'll be
then.
You'll be 2
Yeah.
weeks. So where are you living?
Seattle.
Oh.
So, and I'll be in Seattle in July.
You will?
And on July 11th, my aunt is having a family reunion just after my dad's 91st birthday.
That sounds fun.
Well, my mom's turning 90 in July.
Wow. That's great. We'll have to visit. Yeah.
Try and connect. I'm not sure exactly
Alhamdulillah.